All right, here, I'll tell you, truly one of the absolute greats here. We love talking sports here with folks and Amy Trask, the CEO former of the Raiders and also the Princess of Darkness. You can get that book on Amazon, by the way. It chronicles her journey on becoming the CEO and running the Oakland Raiders and Los Angeles Raiders at the time. And Amy, I appreciate you doing this. It's been quite a journey for you, hasn't it?
It certainly has, and it's nice to see your face on the screen.
Thank you so much here. I mean, Amy, working for Al Davis for you. Um, I want you to tell the people because the people I think publicly have a different impression and they have a different narrative of what it was like working with Al. What was that journey like going through that with him?
Well, I think you're very spot on that, Dan. The biggest misconception about Al is that he wouldn't tolerate disagreement or he wouldn't tolerate those who disagreed with him. And if that was the case, I would have been fired roughly 2 weeks into my job. Been there 2 weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks, but I think probably closer to two. I was sitting in a colleague's office and Al walks in and he ripped into this guy. The analogy I always use is he ripped into him in a manner I can only imagine a velociraptor would rip into flesh. And as I was listening to him, I realized he was wrong. So I said in a pretty loud voice, not because I was screaming, not because I was yelling at him, but he was speaking loudly. I wanted to be heard. I tend to speak loudly. So I said, "Excuse me, you're wrong." And I'm smiling now as I remember the look on his face when his head turned and he looked at me. I guess I can best describe it as it was like Linda Blair in The Exorcist, the only difference being there was no green stuff coming out of his mouth. But I said, "Excuse me, you're wrong." And he looked at me and I went on to explain, if you were basing your conclusion on accurate information, accurate data, it would be a fair conclusion. But you are basing your conclusion on inaccurate information. Well, he went on to respond, and I respond, and he respond, and we were both talking loudly. Again, not yelling at one another, but yelling, or I guess speaking loudly is the best way to say it. I learned quite a bit sometime later that we were so loud, people had gathered in the hallway outside the office in which we were sitting, a meeting, he was standing, I was sitting. One woman even brought a box because she was absolutely convinced, okay, this girl's getting fired today. Well, after about 20 minutes of a back and forth, he looked at me and said, "Oh, okay, I got it. I got it. I gotcha." And we went on to have a terrific conversation. And Dan, I believe that set the tone for our working relationship for almost 30 years. I knew that the commentary that he wouldn't tolerate disagreement or those who disagreed with him was absolutely inaccurate. But I knew this when I disagreed with him. And by the way, I believe this is a general rule when you disagree with anyone. Disagree for the right reasons. Don't disagree just to be disagreeable. Have a point, have an opinion, back your opinion up, and have a disagreement. And they can be healthy and they can be productive.
Don't you agree, Amy, that one of his true talents was that he had personal relationships with people that he worked with too? Because to have that kind of dialogue, to go back and forth with you, I mean, people don't have that unless you have a personal relationship, because then it doesn't become offensive. What it becomes is productive. And when you have that kind of conversation, that to me is how I looked at my relationship with Al, that you could have a conversation on a player and what I thought of him or what he thought of that particular player. But I think it's a mutual respect. And I think he saw that in people.
Well, and I think that disagreement that we had 2.5 weeks into my employment set the tone for our working relationship for the next almost 30 years. As I said, Dan, we disagreed with one another far more than we agreed. But when we disagreed, we did so for a purpose, not simply to be disagreeable. And I also recognized he owned the team. He was the majority controlling owner of that team. So it was my responsibility to disagree with him when I did, to try to convince him that his decision wasn't right, but ultimately the decisions were up to him. And if he made a decision, whether I agreed with it or not, it was my job, my responsibility to effectuate it as best I could.
What do you personally, and what do you think Al would think of today's NFL?
Boy, I think about that a lot, Dan. I think not only what would he think about today's NFL, what would he think about what's going on in the world, what would he think about just everything that goes on. He was a wise, wise man, and um, people associate with him with football, but he was a student of history, world affairs. There's so much I would love to discuss with him. As to today's NFL, um, I think there's a lot he would like about it. I don't know that he would agree with everything in terms of monetization in some respects, but you know this, Dan. You know this well. He loved the game of football.
Mm.
And notwithstanding disagreements between the Raiders and the NFL, he loved the NFL. And by the way, I sound like a 7-year-old when I say this, but whenever the topic of the disagreements between the business disputes between the Raiders and the league comes up, and yeah, I'm the one who just brought it up, I always act like that 7-year-old and say, they started it. Because they did. They sued us first. And I'm like a 7-year-old because I can't discuss it without saying, but mom, they started it. But notwithstanding those business disputes, he loved the league, he loved the game. And one thing he said to me from the start of my career, throughout my career with the Raiders, the players are the game. He loved the players.
That chronicled relationship with Roselle, I've asked him too. And it's funny. He goes, I never really hated the guy.
No,
Like,
he didn't.
there were times that it got really contentious between both men, but I mean, there was some type of respect between both men, Pete Rozelle and Al Davis. No?
No, you're absolutely right. And at the league meeting at which Pete Rozelle announced that he was resigning, retiring, um, there was a conversation. Rozelle was at the head table where the commissioner sat. He made that announcement. And then as he got up to walk out of the room, Al stood up. In at our seats, we always sat at the back of the room. We were the kids that were always in the back of the room, the bad kids in the back of the room. But Al stood up. And as Pete walked away from that front table towards the back of the room, Al and Pete embraced. Al reached out to him, walked over to him, and they shared a hug. And that says it all. You're absolutely right. It was contentious at times, but they both loved the game. They both loved the league. And Al stood up and hugged him and wished him well.
I have to bring up a conversation that I had prior to you coming on here with me. I was talking about the landscape of college sports in nil and transfer, because now it's starting to affect the National Football League. Take
Mhm.
a look at the depth of the draft this past year. It's not as deep as it was because kids are staying in college now. Amy, in your opinion, I mean, do you think that this is going to have some sort of like collateral damage towards the league, kids staying in college, or do you think it's a good thing that's nil?
How about yes and yes? Do I
Okay.
think it will? Do I think what's going on now in college will result in some athletes choosing to stay in college because they can now afford to do so? Yes, I do. Do I think that's a bad thing? No, I don't. Will it have an impact on the league? Yes, it can. Will it be a seismic impact? No, it won't. So I think yes and yes, or no and no. I don't remember how you
Absolutely.
phrased the question, but they're not mutually inconsistent.
Absolutely. Her more with Amy Trask here in a second. We got to talk about our friends at Morgan & Morgan, the number one injury law firm in all of America for a reason, folks. With over $30 billion recovered, this firm was started over 30 years ago by Ultima and John Morgan to be able to get this company going to protect families across this great country like yours. I tell you about the family in Pennsylvania that was initially offered $650K. They got nearly $30 million in settlement. The family in Florida that got initially offered $350,000. They got nearly $12 million in settlement. Go to forthepeople.com/big sills or pound law 529. That's forthepeople.com/big sills or pound law 529 to do me a favor. You tell them Big Sill sent you. We're going to talk more with Amy Trask, and I've got a theory on the Raiders the last 20 years. And I actually had a conversation with Al Davis. Believe it or not, there was a guy named Gigi at the Palm, and I sat at the Palm with him and had this conversation. I'll bring it up with Amy Trask next, right here on SportsGrid. are talking to the Princess of Darkness here, the former CEO of the Raiders, Amy Trask, with us here. And hey, before we get going here, Big Three, we had Ice Cube on with us last week, and that thing's doing great. I mean, I know you're involved with it. You were involved with the draft. You have to love what's going on with this. Is, I think, going into their ninth year now.
Correct. And I am so glad you raised the big three because I was trying to figure out, ooh, should I interrupt him? How can I interrupt him? Because I just saw flash across my screen one of your trivia questions was about Dwight Howard. And he, of course, is coming back to the big three this year. He'll be playing for the Los Angeles team. You're right, Dan. We're going into our ninth year. And I will tell you, when Cube and Jeff formed this league, season one, all the naysayers, it'll never last. New leagues never last. It has no chance. It may not even make it a full season. And now we're going into season 9. And boy, these men and then all of us involved with the big three, committed to doing all we can to ensure that it continues. And it's season 9. Very, very exciting.
You know, I love the fact that you guys always embraced the community there. I mean, the black hole back in the day there in Oakland, that must be kind of sad for you now, Amy, and watching, that's an empty building now. But again, it's a great facility on what's going on in Las Vegas right now. But still, the memories there, the black hole, all the rappers that were in that community, Skilo, Ice Cube coming up and being a part of that when he was in Los Angeles. I mean, that's a missed part of the Raider heritage a little bit, though, no?
Well, you're right. Cube came up. I remember Hammer performed for us once. Oh, Dan, I just got to tell you this. It's kind of hilarious. Hammer came to the stadium to perform for us one game. And for those who may not know to whom I'm referring when I say Hammer, MC Hammer, of course. And so I walk up before the game. I walk to where he's standing with a group to thank him for being there. And then I start explaining to him, now look, when you perform, you can go over here and you can do it like this and you can do it like this. And about 2 minutes in, I stop and I look at the person next to me and I say, am I explaining to MC Hammer how to dance? And Hammer looks at me and goes, pretty much. He didn't say it, but his face was like, yeah, you are. And he was so kind and so gracious. And you're right. There was a vibe there that is, it's hard to describe. And, the new stadium in Las Vegas is magnificent. It is a magnificent, magnificent building. And for the fans that travel to Las Vegas and enjoy being there in that magnificent building, I'm thrilled for them. And for the fans in the Bay Area who are, again, heartbroken, my heart breaks for them. And, those two things are not mutually exclusive. I can be both happy for the fans who are happy and heartbroken for the fans who are heartbroken.
Yeah, I won't mention the politician that ended that thing in Oakland because I think we know who that guy is. So we'll leave it there here. But I'll throw this at you too here, Amy. You think Al would want the team in Vegas, or would he have wanted it in Hollywood Park?
Wow, that's an interesting question. The conversations that we had, and I think, when we were in Los Angeles and he chose to move the team back to Oakland, I explained to him that from a financial perspective, the terms of the Oakland deal were not optimal for the Raiders, and that's a polite way to say it because, of course, we would be sharing a stadium with the A's who control the concessions and control the signage and control the advertising and control the parking. So I explained to him that the Hollywood Park opportunity was far better financially, but his heart was in Oakland. He wanted to go to Oakland. Would he love the stadium in Las Vegas? Absolutely. And the other thing he made very clear was when I was following up with him much, 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 much later in his life, he wanted to leave the decision as to where the team would be located up to his son.
Oh, wow. Okay. I did not know that. Here's the
That was in the fine.
conversation I've
That was towards the very end of his life.
Okay. I had a conversation with him about this. He kind of agreed, but not really. Al, because he's like, not really. But I'll throw it at you and ask you this. Do you think the reason the last 25 years that they have struggled has been because of all the relocation conversation? Prior to that, Amy, they were the number one franchise in percentage of wins in football history. But the last 25 years, it's LA, it's Vegas, it's what's going on in Oakland. Do you think there was too much time in the courtroom and relocation that kind of took their eye off the ball of football?
I don't look, I think there's a lot of reasons for that, which you just described. I don't think that his eye ever came off football. That was his love, that was his passion. I think there were a number of reasons. And I will simply note this: towards the very, very end of his life, the last few years, I remember listening to so many fans say, Amy, he's not looking at making decisions that are the best for the long term of the franchise. He's making decisions that are short term. He's not building for the future. And I bit my tongue and I didn't say a word, of course. But my thought when I would hear that was, when you know that you don't have a long term, when you know that your future is very short, you view long term and short term very differently than if you're not aware of that. So he took some criticism for making decisions towards the end of his life, which were deemed short term decisions, but I knew that he only had a short term. So I guess the reason I share that is to remind everybody, when you're making a judgment about someone maybe not looking at a long term, recognize they may know they don't have a long term.
Absolutely here. All right. So the involvement that Mark has now with Tom Brady, beneficial in your opinion? They get Fernando Mendoza #1 overall. How do you think this relationship goes forward?
Well, first of all, let me clear something up. There are those who believe I hold ill will towards Tom Brady or dislike Tom Brady for what happened on that
Talk
snowy
through 'em.
night in what happened on that snowy night in New England. Not true, not true, not true. I hold absolutely no ill will towards Tom. Tom did what every fan of every team would want his or her quarterback to do in that situation. Tom did nothing wrong. He did what you want the player to do. I think he can be an asset to the team. They need to, and it looks like they have taken a big step towards creating a collaborative, communicative environment, and I think he can be helpful.
Absolutely. I forgot. I two things I'm not allowed to bring up. You ready? The immaculate reception and the tuck rule. Those two things will always get Al going there. Al, I apologize there. By the way, Amy, thank you so much for doing this. Big Three is killing it right now. I saw you at the draft. I can't wait to see what happens coming up here this year. By the way, they're going to be having all kinds of expansion conversations. Amy Trask, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dan.
We will talk about a player that is making news again in the NCAA next. So one day we're going to find out when this kid, Brendan Sorsby, grows up and becomes a man here, what he wants to do in his life. Now he's trying to petition the NCAA to rule on his case since he's been basically pseudo suspended for his gambling actions when he was in high school and when he was at Indiana as a backup. So now he's petitioned the NCAA and wanting to get a resolution on his case to get back and get his eligibility back in the NCAA so he could play at Texas Tech. Kid, you really have an issue right now when it comes to talking about getting into the National Football League based on a gambling issue. So attorneys, again, are representing Texas Tech quarterback Brendan Sorsby, and he has notified the NCAA with a request, and he wants it expedited to get a resolution in the reinstating of his eligibility over the sports gambling allegations and informing the association that an illegal challenge is imminent. So again, all of this said here, first he wants to go into the supplemental draft a week ago. And to me, that's not always a great remedy to try to get you into the National Football League. My best bet would be, I do think you've got to fight to try to get your eligibility back, but I think it's going to be difficult because of the gambling. I don't believe the National Football League wants to put this kid in a supplemental draft. I think he wants them to get his issues resolved before he gets into a position where he'll play in the NFL. The NFL doesn't like players involved with gambling. Now, here's something else to think about. Would the NFL retro a suspension for the kid if he does get drafted? Say he gets drafted by the Cleveland Browns, and the Cleveland Browns take him in the second round of the supplemental draft, which would mean that they would lose the second round pick in the 2028 draft. You tell me this, okay? Is that something the NFL wants to do? Is have a kid that's involved with gambling with the National Football League come in and say, hey, look, since you drafted him, we're going to retro that punishment that he had in college, and he's going to sit out a year. You're talking about a scenario where he could sit out potentially 2 years before he gets a chance to play some football in the NFL or really in college football. So my best bet, I would think that you would try to get your eligibility back so that you could go back to Texas Tech. You signed a $6.1 million nil deal and try to resolve your issues in playing. Maybe you play at a lower level. But for me, this kid's got to get his backside on the football field, and he's got to outrun these gambling charges. Eligibility for him to play in college football, I think, is more important than getting a chance to play in the National Football League. Make no mistake right now, there is a situation where you have to look at how the league is going to look at him and how the National Football League is going to look at how the eligibility is going to go forward with the kid here and what they want and how they're going to try to put him in the league. Make no mistake about it. The National Football League wants no issues when it comes to gambling like this. They don't want any issue when it comes to it. So again, if I were him, I would try to go and get my NCAA eligibility back and try to get back on a football field. And if that means even having to maybe step down to another level, so be it. But getting into a position where the National Football League is going to look at gambling and you're going to go into the National Football League's draft, make no mistake, this is not where you want to be if you are Sorsby. You want to get a chance to get your eligibility taken care of so that you can play and outrun this scenario. The NFL doesn't like gambling in any form or fashion. That's not where they are with this. The NFL is not going to take a kid in a supplemental draft and go, oh, the kid, why did he lose his eligibility? Because of gambling. He had issues at IU and in high school. That's not where the NFL travels. That's not the lane they're in. So this kid's in a pretty tough spot here. He signed a gigantic deal when it came to, him having the ability to be able to make a lot of money there in Lubbock. He's got a chance to go there and make a killing. But again, getting this situation resolved is going to be probably his future if he doesn't get this situation resolved, I could see this kid never playing again. National Football League, or in maybe Canada or the UFL. The league's not going to put him into a supplemental draft if he's got gambling issues. Look, if you took money from an agent or there was some other type of situation that stopped your eligibility when you were in college, so be it. Gambling, that's not where the National Football League is going to land on. That's not where they are. Every time you walk into a locker room, there's a sign on the wall, gambling prohibited. I know, we see DraftKings, we see all of this. This kid's in a pickle here. We'll see what happens. We're going to talk with our friend, Rocco Mediate, PGA Championship, next right here on SportsGrid. No doubt about it, PGA Championship now has been moved up in the calendar. You know, it used to be at the end of the season here when it came to the major championships. Now they got it in front of the U.S. Open here. And anytime we talk golf with our friend Rocco Mediate. He joins us right now. Rocco, how you doing, my friend? And love this here that you're with us here, man.
No problem. It's fun. It's fun.
Hey,
Yeah.
hey
It's
Rocco, you tell me, do you like where they put the PGA Championship? Do you like that they moved it instead of being the end of the season, they moved it in front of the United States Open?
Yeah. I mean, I've got that question a lot. I don't really think it. We were always just so used to it being the last major in August. But I don't mind the change. I think it limits courses. Well, kinda. Can't go much further north. You know what I mean? In May. But I think it's fine. It doesn't bother me at all. I don't think it diminishes or does anything to anything else. Still, everyone said, "Well, what's the PGA?" Well, it's one of the major championships. I don't know what else to say. But yeah, I don't mind it in May.
Rocco, do you think that they've gotten away a little bit too much from playing on the traditional tracks that they used to have? I know golf is expanding, and I know that you're
Right.
getting more tracks, though, but they've kind of gotten away from the traditional places, Congressional, Marion, all those places that used to be symbolic when it came to the major champions, especially the PGA Championship. Do you think they're getting away from that too much?
Yeah, I don't know. They went into, Ronneminck is as old school as it gets. Obviously it's a Ross golf course. It's 100 and some years old, I guess. But some of the, like the U.S. Open moved away a few times to different courses. But The PGA's was always, Valhalla's used a lot. Southern Hills was. I think they're staying in the same area. I'm trying to think of where the PGA went that you wouldn't think it would go. I'm trying to think of what course you wouldn't think it would be at, but I can't come to mind. But this week they really went back to old school. Those, growing up in Pennsylvania, the Northeast. I grew up in Western PA, but the golf courses, that's what they're all like. There can be some pins that are pretty close to, like they were complaining yesterday. That's what those greens are all about. You just got to deal with it. That's what major championships are. It's not always fair. Let's put it that way.
Do you like this track? Do you like this track that they're playing on this weekend?
Yeah, they did a nice job. It's short for now, the standards nowadays. But the greens are the protection. They made the fairways widen up, but the greens are so difficult. You're seeing it, 4 unders leading still. That's, at the beginning of the week, I said 14, 16 under par would win. But the greens, if they firmed up, they're fast, forget it. And there's rough. Because it didn't look like there was much rough, right? You're saying, well, they're going to tear it to pieces. Rory even said, and he was wrong, well, you can just drive it. You just drive it as far as you can. Who cares? Well, you can't. On those type of greens, forget it. It will defend, and it's doing a great job. There's some good rounds going on today, it looks like. But, obviously it's going to be probably 7, 8 under par wins. Probably. Which is that's major championship score, if you ask me.
I have to ask you this here. Obviously, in your opinion, Rocco, PGA has beaten LIV. They've won the argument, right? I mean, they've won.
It was just a matter of time. Yeah, it was just a matter of time. It was always going to happen. Always going to happen. There's no product. It's like, I remember back, and I never cared that the guys were taking the money. That didn't bother me at all. Of course, someone offers you zillions of dollars. It's like Koepka went. He was hurt bad, pretty bad, apparently. Well, and they offered him whatever they offered him. He's like, I got to take this because what if I can't play in 3 years? What am I going to do? I mean, not that he was, didn't have any money, but when you're talking, hundreds of millions or $100 million, that's a whole different animal. I never cared, never minded about that. The only thing that made me mad about LIV is the guys that badmouth the PGA Tour. Okay, and there's a lot of them. They badmouth the very entity that gave them life in golf. Because what else would they have done? Where are you going to go play? There's no PGA Tour. No one will know who you are. And the other thing that made me really mad, and I would change the whole thing, the people that signed the lawsuit back then to sue the tour to play the FedEx Cup, that year, I'm looking at it going, well, when you signed all your rights away, that means you signed all your rights away. I would ban those guys for life. You would never get to come back, ever. It wouldn't be. I wouldn't even give you a chance to go through tour school. You're done. You want to sue me after you left and badmouth me. Now you're going to sue me when you sign your rights away. Never come back. But LIV was always going to lose because the product isn't there. Sorry, it's just not. Who watches?
Boy, I'll tell you, and I'm going to bring 2 names up. How much harm do you think that Greg Norman and Phil Mickelson have done to their reputations? In your opinion here, Rocco, how much do you think they've done? Because those 2 guys were bad-mouthing the PGA.
Well, Norman's reputation was always that. Put the unbelievable player that he was. We'll put that aside because he was one of the best of all time. But he just wanted all. He wanted it all. Did the PGA Tour do everything perfect? Probably not. I don't know. But it didn't really matter. It gave us a place to be, a place to become whatever it is we became, right? And Phil, I don't know what the heck happened there. I mean, he just went off. They wanted everything. And you don't get to have everything. First of all, there's nowhere to put it. Just a little joke. A little Stephen Wright joke. But yeah, you can't, you don't burn all the bridges because eventually you're going to go, I kind of want to go back there because now what's going to happen? What if it does fold? What if it does go away? Well, what half those guys are done. More than half done. There's nowhere to go. They have no access. So it was a big deal, but the money changes everything. But someone like John Rahm, who is still I mean, he may win the PGA this week. And I get to see him a lot at Silverleaf. First of all, he's a great guy, wonderful. But it's hurt him a little bit. He may be able to put that to bed this week. But it has. Cameron Smith, he's coming around a little bit now. But it hurt these guys because it wasn't the competition or the golf courses. And it just, I don't know. I think it was always going to happen, and it's happening. You know, and I'm not wishing it to go. I'm not that guy. So I just, who knows what's going to happen? Who's going to take it over? I don't know.
Rocco, how about this? How about this here? How would you get these guys back in on the PGA? Would you, some of them that you would want, would you put them through qualifying school?
Well, some of them would have, like, if you look back at the records, you know, they have some sort of access if they were still playing on the tour. I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't know how they're going to do it. They're going to have to pay fines probably. Koepka did it right. He went, you know, what do you need me to do? And I'll do it. He didn't bitch and moan and complain and be a, you know, he said, yeah, I got to pay $5 million to a charity. All right, here you go. I got to start playing in the other events. Okay, I'll do that. And look what's happening. He's getting better and better. Koepka will be back to normal. He probably already is. Patrick Reed, I want to go where golf is again. He's doing it the right way. Those guys never badmouthed the PGA Tour.
No,
they never said a word. The guys that did, I wouldn't let back. You don't get to come back. None of them. But that would be me. That's a bit. It's a bit over the top, but you can't expect to have everything. You don't get to have everything. You know, why didn't Rory leave? Why didn't Tiger leave? Why didn't all the guys that didn't leave? Because they wanted this, and that's what they have, and everybody's happy.
Absolutely, I'm with you 1,000% here on this here, Rocco. I mean, listen, I don't really begrudge, like you said, the guys taking the money here. All right, we're going to continue more of the conversation with our friend Rocco Mediate. I'm going to ask Rocco who he thinks wins this thing this weekend. We will do that next. More with Rocco Mediate. We'll do that right here on SportsGrid.
You wouldn't have your ex officiate your wedding.
Do you, Jake? Liar? Cheater? Gaslighter?
So why have anyone but America's largest injury law firm handle your injury case? With over $30 billion recovered for our clients, there's a reason to go big.
Gaslighter, coitus crier, he's got more red flags than a bullfighter's attire.
Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm.
Boy, I'll tell you what, the name of the show is Outspoken, and we love Rocco Mediate because he is outspoken here. And we just were having a small conversation here now. In a couple of years, we're talking about maybe official starter at the Augusta National. Tiger will be involved in that.
Sure.
Most notably, probably going to have maybe even Nick Faldo will be involved in something like that.
Yeah, sure.
Do you think Phil Mickelson will ever be involved in being an official starter at Augusta National?
No, I don't think they'll deal with that. Because you got to look at the other guys that are in it. Like if you think of right now, you got Watson, Nicholas Player, correct? Yeah. What do you think they think about it? What do you think they would think? 100%. So it's like, if Mr. Palmer was here, I don't know that LIV would ever happen if he was around. So I say no. I say no chance. Augusta National will never. I shouldn't say never. Who knows? But I wouldn't. No, because the other guys would be. It just doesn't fit. He gave all that up when he did what he did. Simple as that. I think.
Bryson DeChambeau. Would you want him back on tour?
He signed the lawsuit. Nope. When you sign away your rights, what does that mean? You signed away your rights. Yeah, we're going to sue the tour to play in the whatever it was, the FedEx Cup back then, because you earned the points. But once again, are we stupid or can't we read? You signed away all that. It's gone. You don't get to come back and get it. I guess the lawsuit was kind of a joke. The judge went, yeah, get out. This is stupid. I have no idea what they said, but that's what I just said. No, I don't let them back. Sorry. You don't get to do all that and then say, oh, I'm sorry, can I come back? No, you can. You can't. But that's different.
So he's going to be delegated to doing exhibitions. In your opinion, I saw something with YouTube Golf or something.
He'll have a way back. They'll let him in somehow. Just because I thought the law was absolutely the worst thing of all time doesn't mean anything. But as far as Bryson as a player, he can't do anything but help the tour. Period. Can't do anything. And they will let him. There'll be a way in somehow. I don't know what. I have no idea. I'm not in the loop of that at all. But I don't think that. You have to look at what these guys did to the entity that gave them life. You have to look at that and say, well, wait a minute. What? I thought we were the devil. Now you want to come back with us? No, I don't know. You signed a lawsuit to sue us after we told you can't go, and if you go, you can't come back. That was the rule. That was what they said at first, right? Once you leave, you can never come back. I mean, Watson had a big talk about it at Augusta, I think. He's like, I thought these guys couldn't come back. That was a little harsh, because everybody was mad, but I get it. I totally get it. But some of these guys could only do good for the tour. I love Bryson. I just can't believe he signed that contract. I mean, that lawsuit.
For you, Rocco, how about this, Rocco? For you, when you look at those LIV guys, I mean, for a guy that performed on the PGA Tour all these years and being a member of the PGA Tour, how do you look at those guys? Do you look down on those guys too? Because I'll tell you what, you even hear Jim Nantz talking, the way he talks. He's not a big fan of what those guys did. In your opinion, for you, were you like, again, you don't really respect these guys and what they did?
I don't respect the guys that did it with the bad mouthing. I have no problem with any of the guys that left for the money. And then they'll tell you. The guys that left saying the PGA Tour is the devil and all that stuff, like I said before, can't stand them. Because it's wrong. They gave them. Why do you think they got a choice to go to LIV? Because they made their bones on the PGA Tour. Period. So no, I don't have any respect for those guys, but I'd have no change at all with the guys that went for the money. Absolutely not. I mean, you have to. You can't say, nah. Some guys wanted to do it, and they did it. Doesn't make them a bad person.
All right, let me get your takeaway on the PGA Championship this weekend. Who do you think's holding that beautiful trophy on Sunday?
I like Scotty. I've liked Scotty. I like every event he plays in, really. And I don't know what's happening. I think he's teeing off shortly. Rory's right. After Rory's first run, you're like, well, but the scores never ran away. So if he could muster up something like yesterday, boom, and now he's 2 or 3 under par for the tournament. He's right there. You know, Chris Kirk shot a good score, made a double on the last hole, but shot six under, I think. So it's out there. You know, so, but, you know, now these guys at 2, 3, 4 under, finishing the day today, 5 under, it's a crapshoot. Justin Rose shot, I don't know what he did on the last hole. He drove perfect, but it's wide open right now, really. But the guy, like Rory's going to be there tomorrow. He's already there right now. Scotty's teeing off. We'll see. But I like Scotty every week. This is a perfect venue for him. Every course is, but the majors are. Same with Rory. Rory's driving it perfect now after the first day. Danger for everybody.
You know, I'm going to ask you one more time. The last time we had a conversation, you know, we broached this. Is he starting to threaten being the greatest international player we've ever seen? And that includes Gary Player. So Gary Player's in that conversation, not just best European player. You think he's threatening Gary Player's position as the greatest international player ever?
Yeah, I think he is. He's, you know, the way he plays, I know he's 30. What is Rory now? 35, 36? Something like that.
Yep.
Anyway, he's got plenty of game going right now. And hits it far as he's one of the top 2 or 3 longest drivers on the tour. And he's at that age. Think about that. And he's won 5 already, right? Or 6, 4 or 5, 6, hadn't he? He's won 6 majors.
6.
He's not far away from it. Now, easier said than done. Can he do it? Absolutely. Will he? Who knows? But he certainly can. He certainly can become the best international player ever, easily, if the cards fall right. It's just hard.
Do you think we ever see Tiger Woods play again?
Yes. Yeah, I do. I think what happened, I have no idea. Like I said, I haven't talked to him in 10 years. I think what happened over the last few months and him going over to Switzerland, and you saw a picture of him yesterday getting off the plane, looks like he looks like Tiger again. I have no doubt that he'll play. I mean, if he's physically possible, obviously, but I think it is. Yeah, I think we'll see him again. I think we'll see him again.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I just hope he's physically okay. Who cares about the golf? But that's the bonus. You know, if as long as he's okay physically and mentally, the rest doesn't matter. He's not going to sit at home. Let me put it that way. If he can play, he's going to play, for sure.
I'm completely with you there. I'd like to see Tiger back out there. Tiger's compelling stuff, no question. Rocco, thank you so much, my friend. It is always awesome talking to you. Final thoughts are next, right here on SportsBetting. Have you seen this NFL schedule? And have you seen all the apps that you now have to buy? We've been talking about that the last couple weeks here. And the National Football League is making it very evident that they are getting away from cable television. They do not want to be involved in cable TV whatsoever anymore. You're looking at now streaming. Look at Netflix. Netflix is now a dominant player in the National Football League. We got a new holiday now. It's called Thanksgiving Eve. I hadn't heard that one before, but here we are with Thanksgiving Eve. Not sure what that is, but the NFL and their scheduling gods, they create a new holiday. Well, the National Football League is making it very clear that they are going to start holding these networks hostage. Make no mistake, man. Take a look at what they're doing when it comes to the amount of money that they're generating now on streaming. They had to split 4 games between ESPN and the NFL Network because the NFL Network is now part of ESPN. They had to split it with Netflix now and with Amazon. And now look at what and where they're going. They're talking about spending exuberant amount of money. Look at these NFL games on Netflix. 49ers and Rams, the opener in Australia. Packers and Rams, the first ever Thanksgiving Eve game. Christmas game day. How about this one too? A Week 18 playoff stakes game? Really? And of course, NFL honors. I mean, this is all here on Netflix. This is all going to go down the lane of what the National Football League's next television package is going to be with these networks. I'll tell you something right now. If I was Fox, if I lose the NFL, you lose your network. If you're CBS, you have serious damage to your network. We keep bringing this up all the time here with the NFL and how they're scheduling. Here's the NFL games here. Thanksgiving Eve, Thanksgiving, Black Friday, Christmas Eve, Christmas Eve, Valentine's Day. Look at them owning. Remember when the NBA used to own some of these holidays? Well, the National Football League owns these holidays now, and they do it with television. 97 of the top 100 television shows from a year ago are National Football League games. That's insane. The rest of them are filled in with live sports programming, college football, baseball, World Series, some of the award shows like the Academy Awards or the Grammys. You have live mainstream television, and the National Football League has become a massive media conglomerate. They're bigger than networks. Don't be shocked one day if you get to this lane here, pay-per-view Super Bowl. Can you imagine? The National Football League would be on pay-per-view for people to have to pay for that event. This is where we're rolling. Always follow the NFL's cash register and where they're going next. Dude, they're talking about in the next couple weeks here, ripping up the current television contracts that they have with the networks because there's an out, and they want this resolved before even the start of the NFL season. They want to start talking and negotiating more deals, more money, and now you've got, as we said before, the Department of Justice getting involved. The President of the United States has also gotten involved saying, hey, are you going away from the heart of your fans? Look at how much money it costs for you to have to buy all these apps. We brought this up before. If your cable bill is $250, now you need Netflix. Now you need Amazon. Now you need Prime Video. Now you have to have Piedmont and Peacock. You have to have all of these apps for you to get your favorite television games and your favorite NFL games during the holidays. Commissioner came out, Roger Goodell, and said they give out 87% of their NFL schedule for free to fans. Yeah, but the prime games is what they're selling. And they think we're stupid here. You know how when an event comes to your city, hotels jack up the prices when you have like a PGA Championship or an NFL playoff game, or just take a look at the World Cup. Look at the ticket prices and look at the fares it takes for mass transit and what you're talking about in spending in Boston and in New York. They're gouging their fans. And the National Football League is doing the same thing. They're gouging their fans. The NFL is getting away from cable television and getting into streaming. It's a great way for them to expand the brand and to make more money and to generate more revenue for the owners. Hey, I'll tell you what, if you're the NFL players right now, you got the weakest union on the planet. And you know what they're going to do? They're going to be okay with getting their 1% while the owners continue to rake in billions of dollars over streaming. This is where we're going. Guys, I appreciate you. Big show on Sunday. Hope you'll join us then. See you on the flip side.